Please do not attend the wedding. It would be embarrassing for us. I read those words on my phone screen repeatedly, hoping they would transform into something more palatable, something that did not pierce my heart, but they remained unchanged. My daughter, Jessica, had sent that message at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was not even a phone call, just a text, cold and final, as if she were uninviting me to a casual dinner rather than her wedding. I am Claire, 68 years old, and I have endured a divorce, built two businesses from scratch, raised a daughter alone, and buried more dreams than I care to count. I believed I had faced every conceivable hurt that life could deliver. I was mistaken. Before I share what transpired next, I would like to know where you are watching from. Please leave your city or state in the comments. I would love to connect with those following this story. What I am about to share goes beyond revenge. It is about recognizing your own worth when those you love most fail to see it. Let me take you back 6 months prior to that text. Jessica had been in a relationship with Brandon for about 3 years. He was 32, charming in that practiced way some men are, with perfect teeth and a firm handshake. He worked in tech consulting, or so he claimed during family dinners. The reality was more complex. Brandon had a startup, one of those ventures that sounds impressive when spoken quickly, involving AI-driven marketing analytics for small businesses. He had a small office in a downtown co-working space, two underpaid employees, and an impressive wardrobe that projected an image of success he had yet to achieve. I learned about his situation 2 years earlier when Brandon approached me with a proposal. It was a Sunday afternoon. Jessica had brought him over for lunch. After we ate, she left to pick up dessert, and Brandon requested a private conversation. "Claire," he began, sitting across from me with his laptop open on the coffee table, "I know this may seem forward, but I would like to discuss an investment opportunity." I should have declined immediately, but he presented spreadsheets, projections, and market analyses. He spoke about scalability, customer acquisition costs, and runway. Beneath all that jargon, I sensed ambition and drive, the same hunger I had once felt as a young entrepreneur. More importantly, I saw how Jessica looked at him as if he were her future. Foolishly, I thought that helping him succeed would simultaneously help her build the life she desired. Thus, I invested a significant sum, $473,000, over the course of 2 years into Brandon's company. This was money from the sale of my second business, funds I had intended for retirement and travel, for the comfortable years I had worked tirelessly to secure. Instead, I placed my bet on my daughter's happiness. I want to clarify that the investment was not a gift. We signed paperwork and established contracts. Brandon granted me a 32% equity stake in his company, and we agreed on quarterly reports and regular updates. In the first year, everything seemed promising. The company was growing slowly but steadily. Brandon would send me detailed emails about client acquisitions, product development, and new hires. Jessica was happy, talking about marriage, starting a family, and buying a home together. I felt validated in my decision, believing I was building something for her future, even if she did not fully grasp the foundation I was helping create. However, during the second year, things began to change. Updates became infrequent. Quarterly reports arrived late, then not at all. When I inquired about the business during family dinners, Brandon would provide vague responses about pivoting and restructuring. Jessica would shoot me warning glances across the table, as if I were intruding, an overbearing mother who could not allow her daughter's relationship to breathe. I convinced myself to step back, telling myself it was none of my business how they managed their affairs. I reasoned that questioning Brandon would only create tension between Jessica and me, and our relationship was already fragile. Yet, I kept the paperwork, the contracts, emails, and every document proving my investment was real and legally binding. I am not certain why I was so meticulous. Perhaps an instinct I could not articulate warned me to protect myself. Perhaps I had learned from my divorce that while love and trust are beautiful, documentation is what safeguards you when everything unravels. 6 months before the wedding, Jessica called to share the date, June 14th, a Saturday. She was thrilled, excitedly discussing venues, flowers, and bridesmaid dresses. "I want you involved in everything, Mom," she said. "This is going to be so special." I believed her. I assisted her in finding a beautiful garden estate about an hour outside the city. I attended dress fittings, tears of joy streaming down my face when she found the perfect gown. I met with caterers, reviewed invitation designs, and discussed seating arrangements. I even wrote a check for $18,000 to cover a venue deposit when Jessica and Brandon faced a temporary cash flow issue, another $12,000 for the photographer they insisted on, and $6,000 for the flowers. I did all of this gladly, as witnessing my daughter plan her wedding felt like the culmination of every sacrifice I had made as a single mother. I had thought I was providing her with the wedding of her dreams, unaware that I was financing a performance where I would not even be permitted in the audience. The first red flag appeared 3 months before the wedding. I arrived at Jessica's apartment for a planning session we had scheduled weeks earlier. She had said we would finalize the menu selections, and I had eagerly anticipated it. Just a mother-daughter afternoon of making decisions together and building memories. When I knocked on the door, Jessica answered with an odd expression, not quite guilty, but certainly uncomfortable. "Mom," she said, "I didn't think you would actually come." "We scheduled this 2 weeks ago," I replied, confused. "Oh, right. The thing is, Brandon's mother is here, and we kind of started without you." I stood in the hallway, holding a folder of notes I had prepared, feeling a cold sensation settle in my chest. "You started without me?" Caroline had some specific ideas about the food, and since she's, helping with costs, we thought we should probably consider her preferences. Helping with costs, as if I had not been funding significant portions of this wedding for months. I smiled, swallowed my hurt, and told Jessica it was fine. We could catch up another time. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel tightly, convincing myself I was being overly sensitive, that modern weddings involve multiple families and opinions, and that I needed to be more flexible. But that was when things began to change more noticeably. Suddenly, Carolyn, Brandon's mother, was present at every wedding planning event. The cake tasting I had looked forward to, where she made decisions about flavors while I sat quietly at the end of the table. At the final dress fitting, Carolyn had opinions about alterations while I watched from a corner chair. Jessica stopped calling me to discuss decisions, instead informing me about them only after they had been made. Carolyn suggested blush roses for elegance over the white ones I had proposed, and they decided on a sit-down dinner rather than a buffet because she deemed it more sophisticated. I nodded and smiled, telling Jessica that sounded lovely. What else could I do? Complain, demand recognition for my financial contributions, and argue with my daughter over wedding plans? I chose to remain supportive, attending when invited and gracefully stepping back when I was not. Yet inside, something was hardening. 2 months before the wedding, I was removed from the primary family group chat, where all wedding updates and decisions were being discussed. Jessica created a smaller group that excluded me. When I asked her about it, she said, "It was just getting too chaotic, Mom. Don't worry, I'll keep you updated on anything important." But she did not. I learned about the rehearsal dinner location from a cousin who asked if I was excited about the restaurant they had chosen. I had to pretend to know what she was talking about before looking it up later. I discovered that the wedding party had been finalized, and my suggestion for Jessica's childhood friend to be a bridesmaid had been quietly ignored when I saw photos on social media. I was slowly, systematically edited out of my daughter's wedding planning, and the worst part was that I let it happen. I told myself it was her day, her choices, her life. 1 month before the wedding, I decided to confront something I had been avoiding for weeks. I called my attorney, Richard, the same one who had handled my business contracts for years. "I need you to look into something for me," I said quietly. "What's going on, Claire?" "I invested a significant amount of money in my future son-in-law's company, and I haven't received financial reports in 8 months. I want to know what is actually happening with my investment." Richard was silent for a moment. "Are we talking about the investment in the tech startup, the one you mentioned a couple of years ago?" "Yes. Claire, I advised you against that investment. I warned you about mixing family and business." "I know what you told me, Richard. Can you investigate or not?" He sighed. I'll see what I can find out. 3 weeks later, he called me back. Claire, we need to meet in person. Are you free tomorrow? Something in his tone made my stomach drop. Is it that bad? Tomorrow? My office? 10 a.m. I sat in Richard's office the next morning, watching him arrange papers on his desk, preparing to deliver news he clearly dreaded. The company is hemorrhaging money, he finally said. Brandon has burned through almost all of your investment. The business model is not viable. His client retention is abysmal, and he has been using new investment funds to cover operating expenses, which amounts to running a slow, legal-looking Ponzi scheme. I felt numb. How much of my initial investment is left? Maybe $60,000, but that is only if you can liquidate your equity position, which would be challenging given the company's current state. $400,000 gone. There's more, Richard continued. Brandon has been seeking additional investors and using the wedding, your daughter's wedding, as a networking opportunity. He has invited several potential investors to the ceremony, which explains the sudden increase in the guest list over the past 2 months. My daughter's wedding, the one I had funded, was being used as a business development event. What are my options? I asked. Richard leaned in his chair. Legally, you could call the note. Your investment contract contains a clause that allows you to demand repayment or force a company restructuring if financial reporting requirements are not met. He has violated those terms repeatedly. And if I do that, the company would have to declare bankruptcy. Brandon does not have the cash to repay you. Everything would collapse. I sat there absorbing this information, feeling something shift within me. My daughter was marrying a man who had squandered my money, lied about it, and was now using the wedding I had funded as a business opportunity. She had been pushing me further away, making room for his mother, treating me like an inconvenience rather than the woman who had given her everything. Do not take any action yet, I instructed Richard. Let me think this through. I drove home that day, my hands trembling, my mind racing. Then, 2 weeks later, at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a text message. Don't come to the wedding. You'll embarrass us. I called her immediately, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. It rang 4 times before she answered. Mom, I cannot talk right now. Jessica, did you just uninvite me to your wedding? A pause. I heard voices in the background. Brandon's and another woman's, Carolyn. Look, can we discuss this tomorrow? It's late. No, we are discussing this now. You just texted me telling me not to come to your own wedding because I will embarrass you. I believe I deserve an explanation, not a text at midnight. I heard her sigh that signaled I was being difficult, that I was too much, that I was the overbearing mother she had apparently decided I was. Brandon's mother thinks it would be better if the family dynamics were simpler. She is concerned that having too many parents might complicate the photos and seating arrangements. Too many parents? Jessica, I am your mother. I raised you alone. I have been involved in every aspect of this wedding planning until you started excluding me. And now you are telling me I am not invited because Brandon's mother thinks I will make things awkward? It is not just her, Mom. Brandon and I have discussed it, and we believe it might be best if you sit this one out. You have been kind of negative lately, critical. We want the day to be positive and drama-free. Negative, critical. I had spent $40,000 on her wedding, funded her fiancé's failing business for 2 years, and devoted decades to raising her alone, sacrificing everything to provide her with opportunities I had never had. And I was the negative one. Jessica, I said quietly, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Is this truly what you want? Are you absolutely certain you want to uninvite your mother from your wedding? I knew she would make this into a dramatic affair. This is exactly why we thought it was better to answer the question. Is this what you want? Another pause, longer this time. Yes, she finally said. I think it's what's best. Understood, I replied. Goodbye, Jessica. I hung up before she could say anything more. I then sat in my dark living room for an extended period, that word echoing in my mind. Understood. Because I finally grasped something very clearly. My daughter had chosen her new family over me. She had opted for Brandon and his mother and their vision of a perfect wedding over the woman who had given her everything. She had decided I was an embarrassment, a complication, something to be managed and ultimately removed. And if that was the choice she had made, then I knew exactly who I needed to be. At 6:47 a.m. the following morning, I sent an email to Richard. Call the note. Do it today. I want everything in motion before noon. By 7:30 a.m., Richard called back. Claire, are you absolutely sure about this? This will destroy Brandon's company. The wedding is in 2 weeks. I am sure, I stated. Send the documentation. Richard complied with my request. By 9:15 a.m., Brandon's business email received a formal notice of default from my attorney. The letter was clear and legally sound. He had violated the terms of our investment agreement by failing to provide the required financial reports for 3 consecutive quarters. Per the contract, I was exercising my right to call the note immediately. He had 72 hours to repay the full investment amount of $473, or I would initiate involuntary bankruptcy proceedings and liquidate assets to recover my funds. I knew he did not have the money. Richard's investigation had confirmed that what Brandon had was a failing business, propped up by my investment, expensive office furniture purchased with my funds, and a wedding in 2 weeks that he could not afford without the next round of investor funding he hoped to secure during the ceremony. My phone began ringing at 9:47 a.m., with Brandon's name flashing on the screen. I declined the call. He called again. I declined again. Then Jessica called, and I declined that as well. 6 more calls from Brandon, 2 from Jessica, and 1 from an unfamiliar number, likely Carolyn. I declined them all. At 10:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Mom, what are you doing? Brandon says you're trying to destroy his company. This is insane. Call me back right now. I did not respond. Another text followed. You're being completely unreasonable. This is ridiculous. We need to discuss this like adults. Like adults? The irony was not lost on me. At 11:15 a.m., Brandon sent me an email, a lengthy, rambling message about misunderstandings and family, suggesting we work together to find a solution that would benefit everyone. He expressed appreciation for everything I had done for him and Jessica, omitting any mention of the wedding invitation he supported taking away from me. He did not apologize for the missing financial reports or acknowledge that he had spent nearly $500,000 of my retirement savings on a business that was failing. He merely wanted me to withdraw so his life could proceed as planned. I forwarded the email to Richard without replying. By noon, my phone was ringing incessantly. I turned off the ringer, watching the notifications accumulate. 17 missed calls, 34 text messages, 3 voicemails I had not listened to. At 2 p.m., Richard called from his office line. Claire, Brandon's attorney just contacted me. They are asking if you would be willing to meet and discuss terms. They wish to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? They propose converting your equity to a promissory note with a 5-year repayment plan. Essentially, they want you to become a creditor instead of an owner and grant Brandon 5 years to repay you in installments. With what money? You told me the business is failing. It is, which means this is a stalling tactic. He hopes to find new investors, keep the company afloat, and eventually pay you back. It's a gamble. What are the odds of success? Richard paused. Honestly, almost 0. Tell them no. The terms stand 72 hours. Claire, I must ask one more time. Are you prepared for the fallout? This will likely end your relationship with your daughter, possibly permanently. I gazed out the window at the garden I had nurtured over the years. Roses I had tended through harsh winters and perennials that returned stronger each spring due to the care I had provided. My daughter uninvited me from her wedding via text message because her future mother-in-law thinks I'm an embarrassment, I said quietly. She chose a man who has lied to both of us for 2 years. She has built her future on a foundation of my money and his deception, and she does not even realize it. The relationship you are concerned about losing is already gone, Richard. I am merely acknowledging the truth. Understood, he replied. I will inform them that the terms are final. That evening, Jessica arrived at my home. I heard her car in the driveway, her footsteps on the porch, and the key turning in the lock, the emergency key I had given her years ago that she had apparently never returned. Mom, she called out, entering my living room without knocking. We need to talk. You cannot hide from this. I am not hiding, Jessica. I am simply not answering phone calls from those who have made it clear I am unwelcome in their lives. She stood in my living room, looking so much like the little girl she had once been, but her eyes were different now, hardened, more calculating. You are trying to destroy Brandon's company right before our wedding. How is that not hiding? How is that not revenge? I am calling a legal note that Brandon defaulted on. That is not revenge. That is business. This is because I uninvited you to the wedding, isn't it? You are punishing me for setting a boundary. A boundary? That was what she called it. Jessica, did Brandon inform you of how much money I invested in his company? She hesitated. I know you helped him get started. $473,000 over 2 years, money from the sale of my business, money I had saved for retirement. I observed her face carefully, noting the surprise and shock. He said you invested maybe $100,000. He lied, just as he has been lying about the quarterly reports he was contractually obligated to provide, just as he has been lying about the business's performance. Did you know he has been using the wedding as a networking event? That half of the expanded guest list consists of potential investors he is attempting to court? That is not. That is business development, Mom. That is smart. That is using our family event, an event I helped fund, as a sales opportunity. That is turning your wedding into a business transaction. She shook her head. You are twisting everything. You are trying to make Brandon look bad because you cannot accept that I am building a life with someone else. No, Jessica. I am trying to show you who you are actually marrying. Brandon's company is failing. He has burned through almost all of my investment. In 6 months, maybe a year, everything will collapse anyway. You do not know that, she said, though her voice wavered. Richard investigated. The business model is flawed. Brandon has been using new investment funds to cover operational costs. It is unsustainable. So, you are destroying it before he has a chance to turn it around. You are sabotaging his business because I hurt your feelings. I carefully set down my teacup. Let me be very clear about something, Jessica. I invested that money because I believed in Brandon's potential and wanted to help establish a foundation for your future together. I continued investing even when the reports ceased, even when the updates became vague and infrequent, because I trusted both of you. I helped pay for your wedding, even as you progressively cut me out of the planning, because I loved you and wanted you to be happy. Then why are you doing this now? Because you looked me in the eye, or rather, you sent me a text message and told me I was unwelcome at your own wedding. You told me I would embarrass you. You chose Brandon's mother over your own. In that moment, I realized something crucial. I stood up, walked to my desk, and retrieved a folder. Inside were copies of every contract, every bank transfer, every email exchange with Brandon. I understood that love without respect is worthless, that sacrifice without appreciation is merely self-destruction, and that I had taught you to treat me this way by accepting poor treatment for far too long. I held out the folder. This contains every document related to my investment in Brandon's company, every contract he signed, every promise he made, and every report he failed to deliver. I want you to read it all. Then I want you to ask Brandon to explain why none of these numbers align with what he has been telling you. Jessica did not take the folder. I will not help you sabotage my fiancé's business. Mom, I am not asking you to sabotage anything. I am asking you to confront the truth. The contract gives Brandon 72 hours to repay the investment or provide adequate collateral. That deadline is approaching. If he cannot meet it, the company will be forced into bankruptcy, not because I am being vindictive, but because that is the outcome of defaulting on a legal contract. You could extend the deadline. You could work with him. You could have chosen not to uninvite your mother from your wedding. You could have shown appreciation for the financial support I provided. You chose not to. We all make choices, Jessica. We all live with the consequences. She stared at me with a look that resembled hatred. If you go through with this, we are done. I will never forgive you. Then we are already done, I replied quietly, because I will never forgive myself if I continue to accept being treated as disposable by my own daughter. She left without another word. I sat back down with my tea and waited. The deadline expired at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Brandon did not have the money. Of course, he did not. At 9:47 a.m., Richard called. "It is done. I filed the bankruptcy petition. Brandon's company is officially in receivership." The implosion occurred more swiftly than I had anticipated. By noon on Thursday, Brandon's 2 employees had been informed the company was closing. By 2 p.m., word had spread among the investors he had been attempting to court. By 4 p.m., his business's social media accounts had gone dark. By Friday morning, the wedding venue called Jessica to confirm final payment that was supposed to come from Brandon's business account as soon as his next funding round closed. Except there was no funding round. There was no business account. There was only a bankrupt company and a man who had built his life on borrowed money and false promises. Jessica called me that Friday afternoon, not to apologize, but to blame. "The wedding is off," she said, her voice cold and flat. "Brandon cannot afford it anymore. His investors backed out when they heard about the bankruptcy. Everything is falling apart. I hope you are happy." "I am not happy, Jessica. I am heartbroken, but not because the wedding is off. You did this. You destroyed everything out of spite." "No. I protected myself from someone who was using me. Brandon destroyed his own company by lying and mismanaging my investment. I simply stopped enabling it. He was building something. He was trying. And you could not stand that he did not need you anymore, so you tore it all down." That struck a nerve, her refusal to see reality. "Brandon did not need me," I said, my voice sharper than intended. "Jessica, his entire business was funded by my money. The office, the employees, the equipment, all of it came from my investment. And your wedding, the $40,000 I contributed, came from the same place. A mother who loved her daughter enough to sacrifice her retirement savings. You are not sacrificing anything now, though, are you? You are just taking and destroying. I am reclaiming what is mine. There is a difference. I will never forgive you for this. You have made that clear. But answer me one question. Did you know? Did you know how much money I had actually invested in Brandon's company?" Silence on the other end. "Did Brandon tell you the truth about the business finances? About why the quarterly report ceased? About any of it?" More silence. "He did not, did he?" I said softly. "You are defending someone who lied to both of us, and you are making me the villain because it is more convenient than admitting you did not want to see the truth." "I have to go," she said. "I have to figure out how to tell 200 people that the wedding is canceled." Jessica, but she had already hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling the weight of my actions. Not regret exactly, but grief. The kind that arises from acknowledging that some relationships cannot be salvaged, only survived. The wedding was supposed to take place that Saturday. Instead, Jessica spent it returning gifts and canceling contracts. Brandon moved back in with his mother, and his LinkedIn profile transitioned from founder and CEO to seeking new opportunities. The bankruptcy trustee is still working through the company's remaining assets, and Richard estimates I will recover about $70,000 of my original investment. The rest is lost. However, I gained something far more valuable than money: my dignity. I came to understand that I am not someone who can be used and discarded without consequence. I have learned that I taught my daughter an important lesson, even if she resents me for it now, that actions have consequences and that choosing partners who lie and manipulate will ultimately cost you everything. 3 months have passed since the wedding that never occurred. Jessica has not spoken to me since that last phone call. I have sent her 2 messages, short, simple ones stating that I love her and that my door is always open when she is ready to talk. She has not responded. I have heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Brandon are still together, though their relationship is strained. Apparently, Carolyn is not as eager to support them now that Brandon lacks a business or prospects. Funny how that works. I have also learned that Jessica has secured a new job, one that is better, with actual benefits and stability. She is renting a small apartment on her own. Brandon is still consulting and networking, which I suspect means he is unemployed and running out of options. Part of me wants to reach out to ensure she is okay, but I have learned something crucial through all of this. You cannot save people who do not wish to be saved. You cannot force someone to confront the truth when they are committed to believing a lie. You cannot sacrifice yourself endlessly, hoping that one day someone will appreciate your contributions. My investment in Brandon's company taught me that lesson in the most expensive manner possible. But my daughter's text message, "Don't come to the wedding, you'll embarrass us," taught me something even more valuable. It taught me that sometimes the most loving action is to allow people to face the full consequences of their choices, not to punish them, but to stop shielding them from reality. Jessica chose Brandon. She chose his lies over my honesty. She chose his mother's approval over my love. She chose a fantasy of success over the difficult truth of who he truly was. And when I ceased funding that fantasy, it collapsed. Not because I am cruel, but because it was never real to begin with. I do not know if Jessica and I will ever mend our relationship. Perhaps one day she will understand why I acted as I did. Perhaps she will realize that the mother who withdrew her investment was not trying to hurt her, but attempting to illustrate the difference between genuine support and enabling destruction. Or perhaps she will hate me forever. Either way, I can live with my decision. For the first time in 2 years, I am not financing someone else's dreams at the expense of my own dignity. I am not accepting poor treatment because I fear losing love that was already conditional. I am simply Claire, 68 years old, $400,000 poorer in my bank account, but infinitely richer in self-respect. If my daughter ever decides she wants a relationship with the woman who loves her enough to let her fall, who respects her enough to tell her the truth, who values herself enough to walk away from mistreatment, even from her own child, I will be here. But I will not be funding any more fantasies. Not for her, not for anyone, never again. Kindly subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. With love and respect.